Good morning, Maranatha. Thanks for joining with us again for our daily devotions. If you don't know me, my name is Luke Kramer. I get the opportunity to lead the middle school ministry at Maranatha, and I just want to share just a couple minutes about what God is teaching me in my life just here in May of 2020. One of the great joys in my life, or passions I should say, is talking to people about Jesus, talking to non-believers about Jesus, watching them get saved, putting their faith in Jesus Christ, and then beginning to follow him. That is one of my absolute joys in ministry. And even before I was in ministry, just talking to people who don't know the Lord and don't know Jesus and seeing how I can get them there, or how God can use me to get them to want to follow Jesus. So just a quick scripture. I wanted to share one of Jesus's first encounters with the disciples, and then I want to share one of Jesus's last encounters with the disciples, and just what God has been trying to teach me here in the last few months or so with talking to non-believers. So one of the first things that Jesus says, and all of us know this story, Jesus meets the disciples, they're fishing on their boats, and he tells them to come follow him, and he says this phrase, and all of us know this phrase. He says, "You guys are now going to be fishers of men." You're going to be fishers of men. And what does that mean in my life in 2020, and what does that mean in your life in 2020? When I think about fishing, I don't know how many of you fish, how many of you enjoy fishing, but even the thought of fishing, how many of you have ever been fishing or seen someone fishing and a fish hop out of the water and say, "Hey, I'm caught, you caught me, you got me," without even throwing a line into the water? That's pretty ridiculous, right? But when we think about evangelism, or think about what Jesus means by fishing for men, how many times do we sit around or sit back and wait for the fish or the person in this scenario to jump to us and say, "Hey, I'm caught now," or "You caught me"? That's pretty ridiculous, right? But when we think about that, or to think about that in the perspective of evangelism, we have to be the ones to do the fishing. The people who are not saved or don't follow Jesus, they are not going to just come up to us and say, "Hey, I'm ready to be caught. I'm ready to follow Jesus." That might have happened in the past, or maybe you've heard a story, but that is not the norm. Jesus speaks of himself in the book of Luke, chapter 19, and he says, "I came to seek and to save the lost." I came to seek. I just want to challenge you guys, or whoever's listening to this, who in your life is not a Christian, is not saved, and that you need to seek them. You need to make the conversation. So many times in my own life, or maybe in your life, you've probably been praying for someone that you know to be saved, or praying for a conversation to happen with a coworker or a family member. And the prayer usually is something like this: "God, just open a door. God, just open a door for a conversation about God to happen." And we wait and we wait and we wait. And I just want to tell whoever's listening, and even myself, because this is what God has been teaching me, is that sometimes the conversation is you just have to start it. You just have to be sitting with a coworker and be like, "Hey, what do you think about God? What do you think about Jesus and the cross? And what do you know about that? And where do you stand?" And just sometimes awkwardly, abrasively, just start the conversation. Because Jesus says we need to fish men. We need to go catch them. We need to go find them. We need to go make disciples. And that leads me to one of the last encounters that Jesus has with his disciples, and it's the Great Commission. And we all know the Great Commission. It says, "Go and make disciples of all nations," teaching them all the things that I've taught you, teaching them to observe all the things that I've taught you. And what is the first word of that sentence, that phrase, that commission? Jesus says, "Go." He says, "Go." He says, "Make." It's always proactive. It's always on us to go to them. Very rarely in your life yet, and I can guarantee in the future, someone is going to come up to you and say, "Hey, tell me about Jesus. Tell me what the gospel is." It's not going to happen, and it rarely ever happens. Jesus tells his disciples to go and fish them, go and seek them, go and make them, and it's got to be on us to be proactive in starting those conversations. So that is what God has been challenging me lately in the month of May, is that who in my life do I need to seek? Who in my life do I need to maybe just awkwardly start a conversation about Christ? Stop waiting for that right perfect moment to open the door, to crack the door. And sometimes we just need to kick the door down. Sometimes we just need to cast our line out in faith and pray, God, I'm doing what you've asked me to do. I'm seeking, I'm searching, I'm willing, and just to go and make disciples. So I hope you can think of maybe a few people in your life, a family member, a coworker, someone you run into on a regular basis. Maybe it's the mailman, maybe it's the UPS guy that you're always seeing time to time, and just fish for them, seek after them. Open the door yourself, start the conversation yourself, and do outreach and evangelism the way that Jesus and his disciples did, which was always proactive. It was always us and the disciples starting the conversation and starting the searching themselves. So I hope you guys are encouraged by this. I hope many people get saved because of our faithfulness and our willingness to go and fish them. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope these devotions are good for you and that you guys have been challenged by them. So have a great day.